In its 4,000 years of existence and probably thousands of variations, I've finally cracked the code at making the most delicious cheesecake. Combining two of my favorite ingredients, cream cheese and Biscoff, I'm sure the gods of Olympus would be pleased. So let's start by breaking up 300 grams or 2.5 cups of Biscoff biscuits and adding them to a food processor. If you've never heard about Biscoff biscuits, they come from the land of the chocolate and waffles. They come from Belgium. They taste like a blend of butter, spices, and rich caramel, all jam-packed into a delicious cookie. So if you can find any, definitely give them a try. Then simply blend them until they are reduced to fine crumbs. You also might want to give them a shake or two so that the big chunks can sink to the bottom. Once you have the right consistency, transfer them over to a large bowl and pour in 100 grams or 7 tablespoons of unsalted and melted butter. Then mix until fully incorporated and has the consistency of wet sand. And that's basically it for our base. Next, we want to prepare a spring-form cake tin of 20 centimeters or 8 inches. Then place some parchment paper underneath and cut out the circle. We want to place this inside the cake tin so it makes it easier to take out the cheesecake later. Then transfer the Biscoff mixture into the cake tin and smooth it out into an even layer with the help of a spoon. Now you don't have to measure it out with a leveler, but kinda eyeball it and make it straight all over. Then simply let it firm up in the fridge for about 30 minutes. And while that is firming up, let's prepare our cheesecake filling. For this, add 450 grams or 2 cups of cream cheese to a large bowl. Any kind of soft cheese will work just fine, so if you want to use mascarpone or another sort of cheese, that's just fine. Then powder in 75 grams or 9 tablespoons of icing sugar through a sieve. Also, for the Americans watching, is it weird to say 9 tablespoons? Anything about 2 tablespoons just feels weird to me, but the imperial system is just so confusing. Anyway, next, add 250 grams or 1 cup of Biscoff spread. Then give it a quick stir with the help of a spatula, and then later mix everything together with the help of an electric hand whisk until it's fully combined and looking smooth. I wish you could smell this, it smells absolutely fantastic. Then, in a separate bowl, add 270 ml or 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of whipped cream. And mix it well until you reach stiff peaks. Just make sure you use a higher fat percentage than 30, otherwise you can mix it for days and never reach those peaks. Once it looks like this, pour in the whipped cream into the cheese mixture and then gently fold it in with the help of a spatula. This will make sure that our filling is light, fluffy and airy, so don't mix it in like a madman or woman or you will have a very tasty but dense and deflated filling. By now, our base should have firmed up quite a bit, so take it out of the fridge and gently layer the mixture on top of it. It's best to do this in 2 layers in order to remove all of the air bubbles. Then simply give it a left tap on the table and continue adding the rest of the mixture. Then smooth out the top with the help of a spatula or a spoon, and then bang the cake tin once again, but this time a bit too hard so that the camera falls backwards. And that's it, we're good to go into the fridge for about 6 to 8 hours. Now you probably haven't been thinking, I should make this cheesecake and then set it on fire. But if you were an ancient Greek, your cheesecake could very well have that tragic fate. Hear me out. The first cheesecake that we know of comes from ancient Greece. They were made in 2000 BC on the small isle of Samos. And besides being the cake of choice for weddings, they were also offered to the gods. But depending on the god of choice, your cheesecake could end up in flames. In which case, the cheesecake would be brought to the altar, set on fire, and then shared with friends and family. Imagine going through all of the trouble of making a cheesecake and then set it on fire. How cruel. But besides offering them to the gods, cheesecakes were also served to athletes during the first Olympic Games in 776 BC. But made from goat cheese, flour and honey, these cheesecakes would have bared no resemblance to the modern-day cheesecake. Until, in 146 BC, the Romans conquered Greece and took their cheesecake home as a spoil of war. They improved the recipe significantly by adding the first crust to the cheesecake. But they were not so smart about naming their cake, they called it placenta. And that's probably why you don't see it on the menus today. It must have made the Romans pretty mad, because that's around the time they went on a military conquest and expanded their empire into Europe, all the while bringing their cheesecakes along with them. And by the time they went all the way up to England, the cheesecake became so popular that every country in Europe had their own version of it. But the most popular one came from France, made with the notorious cheese Cœur de Neufchâtel. This particular cheesecake variation became widely popular in England due to the constant wars with France, and stayed popular until it made its way into America, where in 1872 William Lawrence gave his best attempt at recreating the cheese of Neufchâtel. But whether it was by accident or sheer luck, we don't know, but he added too much cream and named his creation the Philadelphia cream cheese. And then a couple of years later, a German immigrant named Arnold Rubin used this Philadelphia cream cheese to create the first ever New York-style cheesecake. But that's not what we're making today. We are making a Biscoff cheesecake, so let's get back to it. Take out the cheesecake from the fridge and melt 150 grams or 2/3 of a cup of Biscoff spread. You can do this in a bowl over boiling water. Then pour the spread evenly over the top of the cheesecake and then rotate the tin until everything is covered evenly. And lastly, let it cool off in the fridge for around 20 minutes. Once 20 minutes have passed, take a spoon or a spatula and go around the edges of the cake. That should loosen it up so we can unclip the side and free our beautiful cheesecake. And then for the decoration, drizzle some of that melted Biscoff spread around the edges to make it pretty. Then go around the edges again, but this time with some crushed Biscoff. Or decorate it however you like, it's gonna be delicious either way.